Good morning. Mac, did you see you did live hacks? People are going to think you're the wrong one.
That was the timer that was used, and I think somebody's got some serious feedback on their sound there. Yeah, if we can all mute while we're not speaking, that'll be good. But yeah, we'll make sure we trim that a little bit off of the advanced video.
No problem. Anyway, so we get going.
Absolutely, we are live.
Marvelous. Good morning, or good afternoon, depending where you're logging on from. Welcome to our 4th edition of our LinkedIn Live, all around cyber and helping people around the world. My name is Francis West. I'm the CEO of Security Everywhere, and our mission is to educate and protect at least 1 million businesses and people from hackers and scammers by 2026. Today, the topic is all about mobile security. And if I tell you, in the last probably 10 days, we've dealt with 9 new cases where people have suffered some severe cyber attacks via their mobiles. And so today we've got our expert panel here. We've got Himesh, who we helped only a couple of weeks ago, and he's going to tell his story, and you will not believe his story and what happened. And then, of course, we're going to go around the panel. People are going to introduce themselves, and we're going to cover many different ways. And I wish there was 2 hours in today's session, because we're going to share, if time permitting, at least 10 or 15 different ways to protect yourself, your family, your team at the office. So make sure you listen to this. And the only thing I ask from everybody today is to share the knowledge that you're going to get today with at least 10 people. And then ask those people to share the tips we've given with 10 people. That way, we're going to help so many more people around the world. So without any further ado, Himesh, straight over to you. Would you mind sharing your story? What happened a couple of weeks ago when you called me on a Monday morning? And wow, well, that was quite a ride that we went through.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for that, Francis. So hi, everyone. My name's Himesh, and I was a victim of mobile phone cyber attack, if you want to call it, last week. I was out on a Saturday evening. My phone was stolen from me whilst it was unlocked. And one thing I shouldn't do, and I've learned from my lesson, is never store any banking details or passwords or anything on notes, which I did have, and which the thieves or hackers got a hold of. And it transpired that they actually hacked my Apple ID as well. After they hacked it, they changed their email address back to theirs. I had no access to my accounts whatsoever. They went to all my online banking apps, visited all my banks. But one thing they didn't manage to do was get into my emails, which was a good thing, which actually saved me a little bit. Even though I had it on my phone, it was secured with Face ID and a PIN code. But again, hackers know ways around things. And transpired I was on the phone to Apple quite a lot, visiting their branches, talking to support, trying to get my Apple ID back, which was essential to me. Basically, it held everything on there, my cloud. And didn't get around to anything, unfortunately, until I realized that one of the verifications on my Apple ID was my old phone number. And transpired that phone number was still active, which I didn't know about. And then what happened was we worked our way around it. I got that phone number active again so that I can get the verification code sent to me. Otherwise, it was all linked to the hacker's email address, meaning I had absolutely no access whatsoever. And transpired, I got that text message, and I call it this, but I hacked the hacker essentially. I managed to get into my Apple ID, change his password, change his email address back to mine, update all my passwords again, which was a good touch actually. So it was a good thing I kept that number, or found out that I had that number still. Managed to regain access to my whole Apple ID. Everything was there, got everything back in terms of my cloud, up to date as it was. I think it was at the beginning of the year it was last backed up, but that was due to no storage in my iCloud. But that's all been sorted now. So yeah, it was a tough experience, to be honest. I've never been in a situation like that, and being an insurance broker, I didn't think it would ever happen to me. But there you go, things happen. and has made me much more aware of how secure I need to be on my phone. I'm all aware of the cyber attacks you get via emails or your computers or your systems, for a matter of fact. But mobile phones, it was a new one for me, to be honest. And the experience, as I said, was tough and took a lot of work to get around getting into my things again, essentially, from these thieves and hackers.
And may I share about the file you had saved on your phone as well? What was in the file?
Yeah, go for it.
No, you tell the story. It's your story.
So, which file? There were a lot of files which I accessed, to be honest.
Well, the one with all the information that people need to get into other systems.
So my notes page.
Yeah.
This is which I didn't know about this, but you could actually have a password on there. Again, I didn't know about this, but on my notes page, I had access to pretty much everything. As I said, passwords, pins. It's a big mistake that I've learned from, which I won't be having on there anymore. But I've learned my ways around it. As I said, I've used Francis to kind of give me some advice and teach me through ways to keep my mobile phone safe. From downloading various apps from Microsoft Authenticator to Sophos, to changing all my passwords and essentially not having any notes on my phone whatsoever. And even if I do have notes, I've created a password on there now as well. So it's either Face ID or PIN. So as I said, I've learned a lot from this, and Francis has helped me quite a lot in understanding different authenticators and softwares which I can use on my phone to keep me safe.
And so you mentioned that they tried to make contact with your friends and also with your parents. What happened there?
Yeah, so when they actually hacked the phone, because they had access to everything, somehow they've managed to turn the passcode off. Again, I don't know how, because my PIN wasn't actually saved on my phone. And again, I don't even know how they changed my Apple ID without having to input a password, which wasn't on the phone. So again, I'm not sure how they've done it. But again, these hackers know a way around everything pretty much.
And it was amazing the speed that they did it in such a short time. And that was a
yeah.
How did it make you feel when you lost your phone and it was just like?
I mean, by the time I got
contact with other people, then.
Yeah, so by the time everything happened, it was a very short period of time between when it happened and when I got back home. And I tried to cancel all my cards. I had to get on. It was all 3 o'clock in the morning. I just come back from a night out. I'm sitting in my bed, stressing out, and yeah, it made me very anxious and a bit worried at the fact that I can't even access my Apple ID, which is one of my main things. Because if I was able to access that, I could have put lost device,
yeah,
which I was unable to do, or I wasn't able to erase it or anything. Because what they've done, they hacked it, and then they changed my phone, so they removed my iPhone 11 from my Apple ID. I mean, there's nothing I can do whatsoever. And then in terms of the further hacking, I mean, they had access to my WhatsApp and things like that. So they actually went onto my WhatsApp pretending to be me, and they messaged various groups which I was kind of close to. I had most recent chats with, and they were pretending to be me and asking for money. But people realized that that wasn't me, because that's not the way I speak, or that's not the way I come around. So it was one of the things was they asked a few of my mates, can you send me £100? I've been robbed for my phone, and they've had access to all my bank accounts. And my mates straight away realized that, hold on, Himish wouldn't be asking for money, just like that on a Sunday morning. And then they started talking to the thieves or the hackers on the WhatsApp, trying to gauge some sort of kind of communication in terms of if we can meet, or rather than us sending you money, give us a location to kind of sort it out. And then they also went to my mum and they WhatsApped her saying, "Hi mum, my phone's been robbed." And I was with my mum at the time, so it was pretty funny that they were trying to do that. And then they've done the same thing with my mum. They tried to give her a call, said, "Look, send us £300, and we'll give you your phone back and forget about everything." And we didn't do that because we know what these lot are like. So we requested for a location. Nothing happened. They said, no, we're not going to send you a location, and then that's it.
Wow.
But again, they had access to my home address, which they've sent us messages as well. It's all been reported to the police. But yeah, no other threats since have come. So I'm guessing they've done the damage in terms of what they've taken from my accounts, and basically done a run-up.
So one of the, okay, sorry, I can hear a lot of feet. Is it my side by the sound of it? Echo. Himesh, also remember I told about Experian.
Yeah, so talking about Experian, I've actually signed up for that now, and I've done the Identity Plus, which is I think $6.99 a month, but it's been up to $10.99 a month. But essentially, I've got that done, and I've locked my credit files, so nothing can be done, and I will be updated if anything was to be kind of frauded in my name, or tried to at least. There was a few things when I actually got my Apple ID back. It transpired that I still had the history on my Safari, which the hackers were using, and there was various things on there like, what sort code is this? Can you use Apple Pay here? Can you use Apple Pay there? And as I was going through that list, came through apply for a credit ocean card or credit card. And then that kind of kicked into me, and I thought, look, let me give these lot a call and just find out if anything's been done in my name, any applications. Transpires nothing was done, which is a good thing. And at the time, because I didn't have any bank accounts, everything was frozen. I couldn't actually apply for Experian. I had an account, but I couldn't actually apply. But yeah, that's all been sorted now. And yeah, it's working really good. I'm checking it daily. I'm getting reports daily. So that's another good thing that Francis mentioned to me, which is helping and benefiting me. As I said, I can unlock my credit at any time I want if I want to apply for a credit card or anything. But the main thing is that it's locked and no one can actually put any applications via my name.
And that's the identity that really catches people out. So thank you so much, Himesh. I'm glad you're smiling again. Because when we were speaking several times, a couple of weeks ago, you were almost crying. But I'm glad you're smiling again, and I'm glad you've gone through this. There's been so much learning from this experience, and you've shared it with so many people already. Thank you, Himesh. I'm going to pass over to Ben, who's my right-hand man and heads up our security team, because we had another case with another customer that got done on a SIM swap. So Ben, would you mind sharing that story? And then when you're done, we're going to go around and start giving loads of advice for people to implement. Welcome, Rachel.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for the introduction, Francis. As you mentioned, I'm the right-hand man for him at Security Everywhere, looking after our customers. And while Francis is out there talking the talk, he leaves me to walk the walk. And unfortunately, in the last 2 weeks, we had a really it was an absolutely horrific attack in a SIM swap. And what's happened is that this lady who's in her more senior years, she's got her picture of herself and her company landline, but also a mobile number on her website. So they've been able to see that she's in her senior years, so more likely to be less technical. So they're actually out there specifically targeting what they perceive to be the most vulnerable people. And then they've seen her mobile number, managed to track that down as being an EE number. They've then gone to her online account. They've hacked her online account. So unfortunately, it didn't have multi-factor, although she does have multi-factor on her emails, things like that. Just took it for granted that, it was set up years ago, never thought to go back and actually put it on. She never, goes into the account because she never needs to. So they've hacked her online account and requested an eSIM. So now they're actually trying to take control of her SIM and take control of her phone number, because of course, they can intercept all the text messages that are used for password resets, and if you've got your two-factor or your multi-factor set up to send a code via text message. So what they've done is and so with SIM swaps, we've known about this for a long time. But typically it was where government organisations and senior officials were targeted, or maybe CEOs and MDs of big corporates in America. You'd read these reports where these people are heavily targeted because of the effort that used to have to go to get a SIM, because they used to have to send one out in the post, and the hacker had to actually intercept the SIM itself. Well, now with an eSIM, all they do is register the mobile phone's device number, and then it applies the eSIM to the phone. So it's become so much easier for the attackers to do these SIM swaps, and it's absolutely devastating what they can then access, because they've got access to the person's phone, as Himesh was describing. Your whole life's on there, and you take for granted that it is secure. So you can fall into bad habits like keeping passwords stored insecurely, or you've got your credentials all in the apps, and people can get straight in. So she actually got a text message from EE saying your eSIM will be activated in 24 hours. If it wasn't you, please ring this number. So she's rung the number. Of course, she's rung the number, and it doesn't just go to customer services. It takes her to the fraud team at EE. So right to the people she needs to speak to, and they said no problem. We'll get it blocked for you. No, thank you for calling us. We'll take care of it. We'll get it blocked. So then I've spoken to the lady later that day, and she's telling me how she feels she's really dodged a bullet. That it was her own silly fault for not having the multi-factor, but she just didn't think, she's not an account she regularly uses. She just didn't think of it. Oh, excuse me. And how she dodged a bullet, but how vulnerable it had made her feel, and how emotional that she was. She felt tearful about it, because the fact that she was being targeted and she was being attacked and being preyed on. Then the next day, she gets a couple of emails saying that there's been a bank transfer proof for her credit card. So she's gone to ring the bank and realised her phone isn't working. He hadn't blocked the SIM, so it transferred the number, which meant her phone was no longer working, and the attackers now had control of everything. So she was able to get straight in touch with the credit card company to try and block the transfers, and obviously then back in contact with EE. She still had the text message on her phone, so she was able to go back to the number, and they then did block the account. So they reckon that they had her phone for an hour. So within that hour, they were able to do a password reset on her bank account and access her online banking. Now, they didn't take any money from there, because bank transfers, typically, I think they can actually be retrieved by the bank for up to a week later. They can actually reverse the transaction and get the backs transferred back. But they looked at a statement, and they saw the last payment on her statement was to her credit card. So then they did a password reset on her credit card account, raised the limit, and got approved from 10,500 to 13,500, and then did 3 separate balance transfers from what we think are stolen credit cards that they've then they were spending on. So they've cleared the balance on these stolen credit cards, which they can then spend on again, therefore removing the trail of being able to identify who they are. So they're not actually using anything with their own real details. So the poor lady's had to spend hours on the phone with the bank. She's had to close down a bank account, because they've been in there. They know her account details, sort code, and all the other information in there. So she had to close that down. She's now got to reopen a new account. They obviously froze it in the meantime, which meant that she had limited access to resources while it was all being sorted out. She's had to then battle it out with EE. Obviously had long conversations with the credit card company. She has been refunded the money by the credit card company. They are now going after EE, as it was their fault. And the worst bit is that the two of us were actually praising EE for having that level of security of saying, here's a text message, are you sure it? And then when she actually rung up, they didn't actually action the request to block the SIM. And the poor lady, well, if you think that she was upset when she thought she dodged a bullet, well, when she found that she'd actually been let down by EE, and then had to go through this whole traumatic experience, you can imagine that it's been a very tough time for her. And of course now she's gone to the credit cards, the other credit cards she's got. She's told them that by no means do you increase limits, and it was actually only the credit card that they attacked where she's got the online feature, the online banking available. With the others, again, she's told them, do not allow it. If I want anything, I'll ring you up. So she has put those blocks in place. I think, as with him, as she's done the Experian credit lock, and there's also another one that the bank recommends, where you pay a small amount of money, and they so maybe Simon could provide some more information on this, but they then you're sort of on a list. So if there are any new credit applications, it does go via the, it gets checked via this list first. So bless her. So she's all right now. Everything's, she didn't end up losing any money, but it was obviously the time, the effort, and what people don't appreciate is the emotional impact and the mental health impact that it has. Himesh, when you're sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning and your life's just been ripped away from your hand, but it's, it's all those. If you're thinking, well, you can't get into my iCloud, I've got all my photos on there. There might be big family occasions and really personal things that are on there that you would have lost through the hack. So it's not just the financial point; it's the actual other aspects of how damaging it is to people and how it can affect people as well. So just to finish off from me, that's why it's so important, if you can, to set your multi-factor up using an application to generate the code, or a hardware dongle, device that actually generates the code. Some places will only allow you to do it via text message, and that is better than nothing at all. But it just goes to show that actually how tech vulnerable those text messages are. But we take it for granted because our phone's secure. Well, it's not, because if the corporate companies aren't looking after our accounts when there has been an intrusion, or poor Himesh, where they've actually just come and robbed it out of his hand, so it's all unlocked. It's the access that they then get. So yeah, the top tip of the day from me is, if you're going to set up multi-factor, use an authenticator app or a password manager that supports MFA as well.
Thank you, Ben. Before I pass over to Mac, because Mac does a lot of work on LinkedIn and he sees so many attacks, I just want to come back to Himesh for just on a point that he made. So obviously this works on iPhones and Android, but because I use an iPhone, I'll tell you what to do on iPhone. So if you open up your iPhone and you go into your settings, and right at the top, you see your name, and you click on your name and you go down to password and security, you'll get down about almost 2/3. There's a section called account recovery, where you can actually set up different email addresses, different accounts, because what you've got to remember, so in Himesh's case, the phone was ripped off him. Now, if he had set his timeout to 30 seconds, at least they only have 30 seconds to be able to go and make those changes. So that's my first step, is please make sure, I know it's annoying, but set your timeout on your phone for as low as possible, because that way at least makes it more difficult. And then secondly, set up at least 3 different fallback accounts, or your brother or your wife or partner's mobile number as a recovery, because that way you can, you've got 3 quick ways to go and recover. Because believe me, I mean, after the pain we've seen with Apple, if you've lost access to your account, and this is Niall, was asking this question, if you lose access to your iCloud account, that's it. You have to set up a new account, which is really frustrating for all of us. But this is why we do these talks, to help people. So over to you, please, Matt.
So, Himesh, I really feel for you. Unfortunately, having also been the victim of these weird and wonderful scams online and through mobiles. And all the things that Francis and the rest of the guys have just mentioned. When it comes to LinkedIn, as an example, LinkedIn recently did a really amazing thing. They've just purged in the region of 10 to 20 million users that have inactive accounts, but we still have a lot of fake accounts on LinkedIn. And this is something that you really need to keep an eye out for, because it's actually quite easy to spot. But one of the challenges that happen quite often is in groups, especially groups that have been that are quite large. So they've got 10,000, 100,000, 1 million people in there. It becomes almost unmanageable for the admins to kind of check who they're approving. So they just hit the approve button, and that onus actually sits on the admins, because you've got to be so careful who you let into these groups. Even LinkedIn can only do so much to protect. But then within these groups, one of the things that's been quite prevalent recently is individuals going and saying, hey, well, make X, because everybody's going through financial struggles. And that's one of the easiest things that they can latch onto when it comes to scams is your vulnerability of, you're in a financial pickle and you need extra money. And recently I reported through to LinkedIn an example where somebody was going on to multiple groups and they were just posting, hey, are you struggling right now? Sounded really authentic. We have an opportunity where you can make additional money from home. And we'd love to share the opportunity with you because, we know what it feels like to go through the struggle. So they really push on the emotional side of things. And then, hey, just click on this link and come and join our WhatsApp group and community. And then it takes you straight away. And LinkedIn does warn you. It does say you are now leaving this platform. But most people, when they're that emotional side of a potential a point of making some form of money or getting out of that hole they're in, will click and go to that WhatsApp. And then even though they join the WhatsApp and it seems at the point that it's it's a real thing, it's a real community, there are other people commenting, by that time it's already too late because you've now clicked and you've given access to your mobile device. And with 67% plus of people, if you're watching this now, I'd love to have your comments. Where are you watching this from? Are you watching it from a mobile or are you watching this on your desktop? And just the fact that if you go on a train, you look at our kids today, where are they most of the time when you're talking to them? Facing the mobile. So this point is so important about how vulnerable we are. Little things like, Francis, when I first met you, you dropped my chin on the ground by showing me how on your mobile device, going into a coffee shop and having your data stolen, literally, while you're having that amazing coffee, you don't even know your life's just fallen apart. So, I urge you to listen to all these experts that are on here today. Take action. What happened to Himish, unfortunately, it's something that happens on a second by second basis. It's not something that is a far cry from reality. And I don't want people to sit there thinking, well, that's nice, it happened to them, or it will never happen to me, because I promise you, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So I'm so lucky that I'm now protected by Francis after I've gone through so many issues myself. Francis, one day you need to share that little link where it shows you how all the attacks are happening in real time, and that was just frightening. So anyway, that's me done. Okay. I'm going to hand back to you, Francis.
We'll do it right now if you want to. I'll put the link in the chat, and people will see real-time attacks around the world. But thank you very much, Mac. I mean, we all live in LinkedIn, and it's just, again, on that point of LinkedIn, please, everybody, go into, if you've downloaded your app, the authenticated, the Microsoft one, which we like best, make sure that you go into your security settings in LinkedIn and turn on two-factor authentication, please, because so many people's LinkedIn accounts get hacked from mobile or from desktops, and then they can never get back in. All the work you've done over your life to build your LinkedIn profile is gone. Simon, over to you.
Francis, can I drop one quick thing in before Simon, just on the LinkedIn side of things? One of the things I would like to say is don't be afraid to report. Because most people think if you report somebody, that means they're going to be removed. LinkedIn will go and do their due diligence. Leave it to them to go and check it out, but rather be on the safe side. And the easy way to find out if somebody's account is fake, it's normally just go and look on their profile, see how many followers they have, how many recommendations they have, how many comments. And one of the surprising things is how recently did they set up that account? More often than not, the account's less than a month old. There's been one post, and the image of their profile picture isn't even the same. There's a woman's picture, there's a man's name, and it's not even in the same language. So there's a lot of basic mistakes to check out for. So that's me done, Francis. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Over to you, Simon.
Thanks, Francis. Wow, what a start to the webinar this morning. I mean, fair play to Himesh. I mean, it must have been absolutely terrible to go through that, but what a positive outcome. And the fact that you've changed your settings, I mean, that's what's a great lesson for everyone to to listen to. So I think that's a real positive story that you tell there. Yeah, I mean, just we're talking about mobile apps as well. It's funny actually, just this week and last week, I've been the victim of an impersonation attack, which has been rather amusing, because I have to be honest, I was disappointed. It's a really poor effort. Where someone's tried to impersonate me, not disguised it particularly well, and then emailed through LinkedIn the people that say they work for the Cyber Resilience Centre for London, and tried to get them to take an action. It's a very basic attack, and fortunately all my staff spotted it and realised that it wasn't from me. But it happens all the time, and it's just about being vigilant and taking those few seconds just to kind of look at those things that are coming through. There's two things I just wanted to very briefly talk about. First was give an update on what we do in the Cyber Resilience Centre for London. So I'm just putting in the chat both our website and also a link to our community. So we're encouraging, like Francis, work very closely with Francis, as many people as possible to join our community. For those of you who don't know, the Cyber Resilience Centres are across the whole of England and Wales. We're funded by government, a partnership between policing, industry, academia, and the focus for us is on helping as many businesses become as cyber resilient as possible. And it's really about focusing on those real basic, simple things that we should all be doing, including two-factor authentication and getting the passwords, a decent password policy in place. It's a couple of things we've been up to recently, and I'll just sort of give you an idea of where we're going at the moment. We've been doing quite a lot of work out in the community in London. So this is where we go out with uniformed police officers and we speak to businesses, particularly micro businesses, about cyber risk. And it's been a really useful insight. So these are organisations that generally don't engage particularly well with government or policing. And we basically knock on their doors and we say, can we have a chat to you about your cyber risk? And what we've found in the work that we've done, and we've spoken since January to well over 1,000 businesses now face to face, is that the general security posture of those organisations is a lot lower than I think any of us had actually assumed. So the task ahead of us is even bigger. And I think that's really, really important to recognise. But as I said, this is about getting the real basics, the fundamentals right for any organisations. And we're there to help out. Looking ahead, what we've got coming up at the moment, there are two things, and I want to get Francis and the team involved in this. We're going to be running a series of clinics in London. So these are what I describe as drop-in centres. So if you want to know how to do those things that Francis just described, then we'll have a facility where you can come in across the capital and actually learn and get people to help you do those things. So setting up two-factor verification is one of those things. And as Francis just showed there on iPhone about how to do the settings on your iPhone. We'll announce where they are. We haven't quite got the locations finally confirmed. We've got quite a few offers of where to go, and we're just trying to diarise it with police officers as well. So we'll be able to give some crime prevention advice more generally, not just about the cyber side as well. And then the other thing as well, which I'm really keen about, is how we engage with the hard to reach businesses. So we've spent quite a lot of time looking at the languages that are spoken across London. We're very fortunate. We've got two Turkish speakers within my team, one who used to be a TV reporter in Turkey, fantastic skill set to have, spreading the message around cyber. And we're starting to now to produce content and guidance in Turkish and also some videos as well. And we plan to do that not just across the 6 or 7 main languages that are spoken in the capital, but also in British Sign Language as well. So we're really trying to make as much of an effort as we can to engage with those hard to reach communities. Now, before I finish off, back to the subject area in terms of mobiles. One thing I was really keen to say, there was two things actually. The first is around the use of apps. So these days, everything is on an app. We have to, I mean, if you've got an electric car, for example, you have to download about 30 apps, I think, before you even find somewhere to charge your vehicle these days. But a lot of companies use apps. Now, obviously, Apple and Android, they have their official stores, which is where most of us should be going to get our legitimate apps. But it is possible, of course, to download apps from other places. And it's just really to urge a huge caution that try and avoid doing that where possible. We've seen lots of cases where cyber criminals are inserting malicious software, malware, into unauthorized apps, which then people are obviously downloading onto their devices, giving access to criminals to your personal data in the way that Himesh described there. So first piece of advice is always to make sure that you look and use the official stores that are there offered by Android, Google, etc., and Apple as well. And the second thing, and this is something I was keen to mention to Francis as well, is about when you replace your device. So if you think about how many mobiles and tablets we probably have in our household, we generally replace them probably every couple of years. Perhaps we get a new mobile contract. What do we do with our old devices? Well, we probably hand them to a family member, maybe a son or a daughter or a parent. Sometimes we might give them to a charity. We might sell them on the internet. The most important thing you can do is make sure you wipe all of the data that is on those devices properly. I cannot tell you how many devices that we've seen which have been handed to someone else, and there is some really sensitive stuff that's still there as well. So make sure you delete them properly. Again, perhaps Francis, something to do in the future is a little guide on how to do that securely using the systems and settings that are on those manufacturers' devices. But it's, again, one of those really simple things. Doesn't cost you any money to do, but just an additional security measure that can make all the difference. That's it for me, Francis. Great webinar as always, and some really, really great stories that we've been hearing so far. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Simon. Just a quick one, Mac. Is there any chance that we can run over 12 o'clock today? Because there's still so much we've got to share. Can we go to 15:15 or 30:30? Are you okay with that?
Yep, I can definitely do until about 15:15.
Okay, let's go 15:15, because I'm just looking at my list that we want to cover. Before we started the call today, we went through a list of about 30 different things that we want to share with you today. And we still got William and Rachel, but I'm going to pass over to Theo now. Theo, we work very closely with Theo. He's absolutely black belt when it comes to protecting people. So Theo, what are your wise words for protecting people's mobiles today?
Sure. Well, I can give you one app on what Apple offer you. So Android will actually give you a 15-second timeout on your screen and allow you to automatically lock the phone as soon as that timeout is reached. So this is where biometric security is so important. And not just that, but to have multi-factor authentication in place as well. I think we've probably said it about 15 times, and it would be wrong of me not to say it another 15 times. Multi-factor authentication is your best friend. It doesn't matter whether you're using it on your phone. Any application that you sign into on the cloud needs to be protected by multi-factor authentication. Whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, I don't care. Everything should be protected by multi-factor authentication. The timeouts is important that you set. It's also the number of timeouts that you can set on incorrect logins. So if you're taking this down, not just from mobile, but down to your workstation, you can prevent the number of times that people can try and log into or hack your password. So look at those considerations as well, especially when you're talking about micro businesses. They're using laptops, they're using their mobile phones. Apply the security measures that you're learning about across all the technologies that you're using. Okay, it's the best way to protect yourself. The other thing that we can look at doing is Apple and Android devices should allow you the ability to lock the app or access to the app that you're going to use with multi-factor authentication. So an Android device will have a secure folder area where you can install apps into, or some of the applications will actually allow you to set multi-factor authentication setting on it. So either via PIN code or via biometrics. More than that, I can't really say. I mean, there's a lot more that I can say, but there are other people that need to speak as well. So please look at your timeouts, set it to as short as you can. You'll get used to it. I promise you. To get into, if you are using something like a password manager or a multi-factor authentication app, secure that with biometrics or secure that with a code. You know, all of these things will just make it so much more difficult for someone that is stealing your device or a hacker or a threat actor to get into your systems and applications. Please take care of yourselves. This is down to the person. It is not down to the business. Businesses can implement things. Sorry, one last thing. Businesses can implement solutions like mobile device management. There is a cost to that, and it will be on a per device basis. But what they can actually then do is separate your business from personal usage on those mobile devices, whether it's a mobile phone or a laptop machine or a desktop machine. Okay, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Theo. We're getting so many great questions in here. Stephen White, close friend of mine, he says if he's got 30 seconds with his son, what's the first thing he'll do with him, and what's the second best thing you could do to stop yourself from being hacked? Well, I think it's a massive layer approach. So, the more things you put in place, which we are sharing today, the better. But I'll answer your question in detail. But the first one that Thea already covered, set up 2FA, MFA on everything. Because once you've done the first one, the second, third, fourth one is so easy. I mean, I don't touch anything unless this layer of security is turned on. So, Rachel, welcome, Rachel. Your first time on our panel.
Hi,
What she does with children, which is such a big subject for us on how to secure children, especially because they all use their mobiles. Over to you, Rachel. How do we secure our children?
Thank you. This is a fantastic session. And Hamish, it's really great that you're turning something negative into a positive by raising awareness. And Francis, I followed your advice by going into settings. So one tip is before you do that, to add the recover, tell the person on SMS that you're going to do that, because my daughter automatically assumed it was a spam message. My sister was like, hey, is this you? So just a tip. So I'm the founder and CEO of Trust Elevate. And we address the problem. When the internet was created, there was no identity layer. So you have all these problems because nobody knows who's a child, an adult, etc. So we verify children's ages. And for 4 and 5-year-olds, we verify when somebody says they're the parent of a child, right? So the companies that require our solution are telcos, social media, gaming, streaming, because there's regulations that require companies to know the ages of their users. We did some government-funded trials with EE to integrate our service in the My EE. So you have My Family, you can add your children. And so therefore you can, we verify the child's first name, last name, date of birth, and we know the parent's mobile number. The information is hashed in the iframe. It's checked against hashed data sources. It's also applicable in situations where there's a lasting power of attorney, right? So you can act on behalf of, say, a parent who's poorly. Our service always also links accounts. So that can be very useful in terms of combating fraud, etc. EE sadly hasn't rolled this out yet, but we're working with other mobile operators to do that. And those are the ways in which we're working to help create a safer internet for children and young people, and also, well, for everybody, because when platforms and apps know the ages of their users, they can create safer spaces. And by linking accounts between people, it's like the recovery thing, you can get the support that you need should something bad happen. So that's Trust Elevate in a nutshell.
So, Rachel, I mean, what is your top tip then for helping children? Because we had a long discussion the other day about protecting, because they're sending, dare I say, naked pictures to each other, at a young age, and that information gets out. How do you educate the children to use this mobile device as dare I say, making phone calls instead of sharing things they shouldn't do?
Exactly. What we're trying to do is help raise awareness amongst parents and young people that there are technical means by which companies could, for example, by deploying something like Trust Elevate, they can create safer spaces. And I use that analogy of like, in the old days, swings and slides. Slides were very, very steep and you come flying off them and you could injure or break an arm or a leg, until there was safety by design principles. So the slides are now less steep, and when the kid comes off, it's on bouncy tarmac. So what we're advocating is for parents to mobilize and call for companies to be more responsible and to create and to actively use safety by design principles. So that's what the industry can do. Then for parents, it's open lines of communications with children and young people. There are some amazing adverts online. If you look at the advert that New Zealand has created, for example, there's a porn actors that knock on they're actors, but not knock on the door, and the mom answers, and the kids in the background, they're like, "Hi, we're here to see your son. He's accessing." So the real important message is keep it light, open lines of communication with your kids, and tell them what to do, that they can always come and talk to you about anything that happens. You will not be cross and you will not take away their device. You've got their back and you'll be there for them. And then to young people, it's trying to raise awareness amongst them without destroying their innocence about the fact that if people ask you to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable, then you should not do it. And to empower them with those sorts of skills to be confident enough to say, no, I'm not okay with that. And then and that relates then to the parent making the kid feel that they can come to them at any point in time.
Great advice, Rachel. Please do share those links, to those 2 videos, because I'm sure Mac will share it for us so people can go and watch it and then go and share these with your kids so they can understand what it's all about. Thank you so much, Rachel. William, thanks for waiting ever so patiently. He's a regular contributor to our panel. How do we secure mobiles?
A really interesting chat, everyone. There's there's tons of different topics that I've written down. So I'll try and just do a whistle stop tour. Do you remember the good old days when we just had Nokia phones that would bounce when they hit the floor and they wouldn't smash? I'm using a Samsung phone. In 1 week, I smashed my phone screen twice in 1 week. That was nearly £500. If I had something like a Google Pixel or whatever they're called, you'd be looking at £1,000 charge for that, for breaking my screen twice. So I remember the good old days when phones, you didn't have to worry about the security elements with them. And bizarrely, if you charged them, they would stay charged for about 3 days. Whereas I can't even get half a day out of my phone because I use it so much. So I remember the good days. I think the thing is that technology changed really, really quick, didn't it? Right? We went from using phones, and they used SMS, right? And we had pagers. I used to love my pager. That was a bit of prehistoric tech, but I loved that. And then we moved towards this idea of digital cameras, really. Do you remember the old ones where you used to have to put in a temporary camera and you take a temporary one on holiday with you, right? And that all changed, and we moved towards digital, right? And then all of a sudden, digital cameras got nuked by phones, because all of a sudden phones had cameras on them. And this is a big problem in itself, right? Because we're very trusting with these devices, and we sometimes forget that they're computers. That's basically it, right? They're not really phones anymore. They're more computer than phone. The actual functions that people used to use phones for is minute when you compare what we're using these devices for. And the tracking, the way that they've been built, and the applications that are data intensive because they're selling it, or they're packaging it, or they're molding it around your own behaviors. So, if you haven't changed your Google location settings, it's following you. That's what it's doing. Following you, it's tracking you. And if anybody takes your phone and gets access to that, they see everywhere that you've gone, and how many miles you walked, and how long you spent where, and where you go to. And I mean, think about the intelligence on reconnaissance of somebody as an individual that's providing you. It's giving you everything about a person. This thing knows me better than I know me, right? Crazy, right? But it probably does, right? It knows me through my behaviors, and not what I perceive to be how I think and how I act. And so accidental data breaches, right? By leaving it on a bus. How many of you have lost your phone before? I've lost mine at least twice, maybe more when I was younger. So accidental data breach. So making sure you've got all of the right layers of security, which everybody has already mentioned already within that, is really, really important. I think going back to the bit around, photos and what we do with our phones can drive things like sextortion, which Rachel commented on there. And I think sextortion is something that I'm really quite passionate about trying to stop. And I think education is the best way. And this is going to be a difficult one to say because it'll be controversial, but I very much think that we have to go with a pragmatic approach towards it, because telling people not to do it is not going to stop people from doing it, right? Taking photos of themselves. So actually, I think it's about thinking, well, first of all, the photos that you take, if you're putting them on social media anyway, and you're putting them, what are we actually showing in the photo? Because how easy is it for somebody to geolocate us using the information they're taking, using AI, using the tools out there on the internet, and then using what they're seeing in the photos to do? But also, if it's something like taking sexualized photos of yourself, don't have anything distinguishing that shows who you are as your identity, because it's easy to deny a photo of somebody's penis, right? That's not my penis. I've never seen that penis in my life before, right? It's easy deniability of that, right? Don't have tattoos or markers or show your face. And I think that's quite pragmatic, practical advice to give to people, even though you might not want to go down that route. Actually, it's protecting them if they are going to do that behavior. I think road applications we've mentioned, and our app needing to download them from trusted sites, and looking at the security, looking at how many people have downloaded that app, how highly it's rated, where it is, not downloading it off of an internet page. And Pegasus, the NSO Pegasus tool, which was spyware, which was the Israeli company that got done for huge amounts of spyware on Android and Apple devices, and that was through a rogue link that you sent. And once you did that, they had access to your call history, to your text messages. They can activate, it's a Trojan, so essentially you can activate anything through the phone, including the microphone and the camera. So I mean, how scary is that? Because we're carrying these around with us all the time. So I suppose the learning with that is don't click on links. It's an obvious one with that. And then just to round off a couple of bits, WhatsApp, mentioned Yamesh's comment earlier, and your story. Thank you for sharing that one, and how they used your WhatsApp to go into some of your groups and say, I'm in trouble, I need X amount, please transfer it across to me, but by the way, I've got new bank account details, please send it here. What some of the more advanced versions of that are now using AI tools to build audio tracks of people, and once they have an audio track of people, which is not as difficult to make as what you think it would be, they can then use that to impersonate you through a text-to-speech program that sounds pretty similar to what you sound like. And so instead of using just a message to convey that, they'll actually record audio using the voice that they've generated as AI. It's a lot more convincing. It catches a lot more people out. So it's something to be aware of, not to necessarily trust what you see and you hear anymore, because the technology is moving so quickly that we can no longer rely on what we've been told we could rely on previously, which is our senses. I see scams on Telegram all the time. It often works like an investment thing, and then they have people who they plant in there to say, oh, I've just made this amount of money, I've just made this amount of money, and that's the motivation and the aspirational move to get you to drive towards that. So be aware. And my last bit is actually just on a bit of a story of myself, where I put in a SIM pin code. Thank you, Francis, for that. It was great advice, but I juggle between technology, and I'm always like I wish I had more arms to do different things. And I was trying to enter my PIN while I was also trying to type something on the computer, and I locked myself out. And when I locked myself out, it said you need a PUC code. But at the same time, O2 went down, so I couldn't go onto O2's website to reclaim my PUC code. Then I called O2 up to speak to them. But because I'd set my password up when I was 16 years old, and I'm 38 years old now, I couldn't remember it. So I was flagged as potential fraud because they thought I was trying to commit fraud on my line. Anyway, this experience ended with me finally getting the code back when O2 systems returned about a day later. So I lost my mobile phone for a day. So if you are going to put these on, and they're really good to put them on, but be careful when your phone is turned off and it reboots, because if you get that code wrong 3 times, you'll be in the same situation I am. Or get your PUC code as your contingency plan before this event happens. So if you ever do accidentally lock yourself out, you can instantly get yourself back online. Thank you.
William, excellent advice. Thank you so much. And let me share now that William mentioned about the SIM pin. I mean, you've heard about multiple cases when we started the session today. And the one way to avoid this is to simply turn on your SIM pin. And I've spoken to probably 1,000 people in the last month. And if I tell you maybe 2 people had it turned on, I couldn't believe it. And in my view, all the mobile providers should make this as a default security level for everybody to use a phone. End of. And the way you do it, don't do it now. Whatever you do, please, because you'll brick your phone and then you're going to spend hours. But the way you do it, you go into your mobile settings and you look for SIM pin. And then when you click on it, there's 2 steps to this process, and follow it very clearly. The first one is to put in the default SIM. Now, if I tell you Vodafone, it's 4 zeros. Orange, it's 4 ones. EE, it's 4 ones. For 3, it's 4 zeros. But if you're not sure, just Google what is my phone provider's default SIM pin. Then you put it in. You click on enable. You put in your default SIM pin. Once you've done that, then you go back in and you go change my SIM. Now, this is where a lot of people get caught out. First, you need to put back the original one, the default one, and then you follow by putting your one that you better remember twice. And the moment you've turned that on, nobody can take your SIM and put it into another phone and start using and bypass all your face recognition, everything that you've had set up in the past. So this is such a simple tip, but so few people have this turned on. So please, that's probably one of my top tips I can share. Ben, what about securing mobiles and QR scanners? And you know what happened to that pub the other day?
Right. So this is another one of the takeaways for everybody here today, guys. We all know about having antivirus on our computers, but you can also have antivirus on your mobiles. Now, it won't detect the dodgy links that will come through in a text message or a WhatsApp. But if you do click on it and then it tries to download some malware like the Trojan that William was talking about with Pegasus and those kind of malwares that are used to steal your banking credentials, they're used to steal cryptocurrency wallets and account numbers and all these kind of things that we now do via our phone. There's a free bit of software that you can download from either the Google Play or the Apple App Store, and it's called Sophos Intercept X. So Mac, if you can pop that in the chat for us, we'll get a rolling banner up. It's Sophos Intercept X. So Sophos
sorry, Ben, for mobile, because I tell you, there's some scammers out there on the App Store that have another app called exactly the same, and you download the wrong one, and they make you pay for it. So download Sophos Intercept X for mobile. Sorry, Ben, I just wanted to make.
Oh no, great work, Francis. I haven't because I've had it installed for so long. I haven't been on to see that. So yeah, great advice there. Thank you. But yeah, it is free. So please get it installed on not just your phone, but any tablet devices as well. So any Android or iOS devices, right across the board. And make sure that you go and tell everybody about it. So Sophos is a well-known, well-established cybersecurity company. It used to be based up in Abington near Oxford. It's now been bought out by a big American corporate, but a very reputable provider. And certainly for the time being, the app is free. So it will protect your device from any malware being installed via a link or I mean, in the case of Pegasus, it was zero click. So it was exploiting a vulnerability in iMessage where they just had to send you the message. You didn't even have to click on the link. There was something to do with the link in the message that was triggering some code in the background for them to be able to then actually access the device to implant the malware. So sometimes you don't even have to have clicked on the link for it to get on there. So please install Sophos Intercept X. Now, there's actually two great features about it as well. And the second one I'll pass back to you on, Francis. So it's got a QR code scanner. Now, particularly with Apple and on the later Android devices, to scan a QR code, you just point your camera at it and it opens the web page for you. But how do you know what web page you are being taken to? So, of course, there was a massive increase in the use of QR codes due to the pandemic. And what happened to this pub is that they'd put their QR codes on the tables out in the pub garden, and then some scammers decided that they would print out their own QR codes and stick them over the top of the ones on the pub benches. They then created a fake website. So it was a copy paste of how the authentic one looks. The QR code directs you to the fake page. They get you to register and put in your card details. Then they send you to the actual page. So you think you're making your order, it gets delivered to your table as per normal, you pay for it as normal, but in the meantime, you've just given away all your details from where you've had to register and set up the account. And then from there, obviously, they can go on and compromise your accounts. Because they've asked you to put in a password to set up your account, they'll then see if you've reused that passwords in your email, your banking, Amazon, Facebook, and all the rest of it. So they it's not just the fact that they've got your bank details now or your card details. It's the fact that because you've registered an account and they know people are out of convenience, reuse passwords, they can then try and attack all your other accounts as well. So yeah, it's got a QR code scanner in the menu options, and if you use that, it will check the link for you before taking you to the web page. The other thing it's got is a Wi-Fi scanner. So what it does is it checks to see if you're on a public Wi-Fi, if the traffic's being encrypted, and how secure that Wi-Fi is. So, Francis, if I can pass back to you to talk about public Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi hotspots and what we can do to be secure if we do have to use them.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, Ben, I'm amazed how many times I go and do events at hotels or golf courses, and you log on to their public Wi-Fi and just download an app called IP Scanner. And what you do, as soon as you've logged on, you click a button that scans the Wi-Fi. I can see everybody else that's currently connected to the same Wi-Fi. And my wife gets really cross with me because my latest party trick, if I go to a pub or somewhere, I find the printers and I start printing test pages to their printers. Makes her really cross. But anyway, I get the point across. So whenever you log on to a public Wi-Fi, what does it say at the bottom? It says unsecure. Why is it unsecure? It's because it's unsecure. So please, if there was another question here about using VPNs. Another top tip that we tell people, if you have to use public Wi-Fi and you have to do secure transactions, download 1.1.1.1. So 4 ones, 3 dots in the middle. It's made by Cloudflare. It's excellent because that way it secures the traffic that goes from your phone to the other side. It doesn't secure your phone, it secures the traffic. A lot of people think VPNs are great, and VPNs secures everything. No, it only secures the traffic from one end to the other. So Simon, we had a question here. What are the police doing about this?
Yeah, thank you, Francis. I've just been downloading that app actually, which Ben's just talked about. It's actually called Sophos Intercept X for Android if you're using an Android device. So just again for another specifics there. Yeah, apologies. I'll keep it short because I've got to go off to the dentist. So Chris has asked a really good question about how the police are dealing with this and do they have the resources. Well, let's put it this way. Cyber and fraud together make up about 65% of all crime these days. So are there enough resources there? No, not at the moment. But they are very, very proactive, both in terms of the prevention environment, so helping individuals and businesses reduce vulnerability to common cyber threats, but also in the pursue element as well, which is where we go after the bad guys. And in fact, I was with the Met Police week before last, where they were just going out to pick up a number of offenders in relation to some WhatsApp scams. So they are very good at bringing some of those offenders to justice. Now, very quickly, you mentioned there about foreign scammers. There are some real challenges. Lots and lots of cyber criminals are based internationally, so they operate outside of the UK. It can be very difficult to bring them over to the UK. Sometimes it may be that they're committing offences in countries where it isn't actually a criminal act. So again, that can make it difficult for extradition purposes. The evidential tests are quite high, so that can also make it difficult from presenting that evidence in court. And in addition to that, the skill sets that are required and the expertise are clearly in demand or in short supply. So we talk about the vacancies and the skill shortage in industry. Is exactly the same in policing. So this is why we want to work with partners and others to try and tackle this. And the key thing there is what I would say is that's why these webinars and the work that Francis and everyone around here does is so important. The more stuff we can do to reduce our vulnerability in the first place, the better we'll make it. So that's why we focus so much in prevention, education, awareness, because that's our strongest tool against these cyber criminals. And with that, Francis, I'm going to have to say goodbye and disappear to the dentist.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being here, Simon. Always great to have you on board. And I hope they don't pull any teeth. Theo, a man with a lot of wisdom here.
Francis,
share more.
What do you want to know?
I want to know about spoof calls, especially have you seen the O2 ones and how and the apps that people use to spoof calls, and what's your advice to if somebody sends you a text? How do you report it? How could you actually know whether this number is real?
So I get, not specifically O2 because I'm not with them, but I get calls from the HMRC quite regularly. And it's all that fear mongering that they try and use in order to get you to sign up to a service or to do whatever. So I try and keep them on the phone line for as long as I possibly can, so that they don't phone someone else. And then there are different steps that we can take. I've shared some links in our private chat, but you're able to go and report those incidents of fraud or attempted fraud using items like the Action Fraud Center or incident reporting through the NCSC. There are different links. Mac, if you don't mind putting those up, then people can see. There's also a lot of guidance from the NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Center, on how you can be safe and what steps you can take to be cyber secure. So there are many free solutions out there. There are initiatives like the cyber resilience centers that you can report these things to. There are places like Action Fraud that you can contact. They provide you with the steps and the methods to go through in order to say that you've been a victim or potential victim. So use those resources. They're free and they give you good guidance.
Thank you, Theo. I'm just looking at I've just found the link, which is absolutely brilliant, which we'll share. I know we're running a few minutes over, and thank you so much, Mac. And I know we've got a hard stop, so I'm just going to do maybe 2 more tips, and then I think we need to, unless anybody else wants to share, I've got probably about another 4 or 5. Rachel?
I was just going to say, follow up on William's point about sextortion and highlight to people that there is a service run by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in the US, which was developed in partnership with Meta and other companies. It's called Take It Down. So if you go to that, and I popped the URL in. So if you go to that site, if somebody's posting pictures of you, explicit ones or otherwise that you don't want circulating on the internet, you can go there and share the image, because if you were the one that generated it in the first place, they'll take the hash of that image and then check online for it and take it down. So this is a really, because sexploitation can end up in can result in suicides, etc. So it's really important that people know that even though we had the old adage that if it's circulating online, it'll be there forever, now there's a piece of technology that can kind of address that. So I think that's important to share.
Thank you so much, Rachel. That is so important. I mean, that's why we feel so strongly, the people we work with, to start educating children at the age of 5. And we want to get that curriculum into the UK schools at a young age. Another tip I want to share with you, which I use a lot, there's a website called Who Called. So it's who-called.co.uk, and Mac will put it on the chat. So when you get when you get a text message through from your on your phone, or let's say you get a WhatsApp message, you can always see the phone number. Copy that phone number and paste it into Who Called Me, because then you can see whether anybody else has reported that number and how they've rated it. And I ask you to do the same. So if you see a number that looks dodgy, first thing you do is go and report it. The second thing you do is you copy the phone number and you send that phone number to 7726 in the UK. And that actually spells the word spam if you look at your keyboard on your phone. Because as soon as people report these numbers, they are actually investigated and they're taken down very quickly. But then the second thing you do, of course, is you then block the number. It's normally at the bottom of the message. The last thing is you delete the message in that order, because if you do that, at least if there was any infected links on that message, it'll be gone and you've reported and helped many other people. So on that note, we're also working, just to finish off, listen, thank you so much for all the panelists today and sharing your time and your knowledge to help so many people out there. These sessions are recorded. And we are, you see, if you go to the Security Everywhere LinkedIn page, you'll see all the previous recordings, so you can watch them back. Please share them. Please post them to help other people. Mac and Ben and I are also discussing doing a LinkedIn audio. So that'll be great, almost similar to Clubhouse in the old days, which we did a lot through COVID, where people can come and ask us live questions, because we had so many great questions. So on that note, thank you, everybody. I wish you a very pleasant rest of the day and keep cyber safe. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you, everyone. And
Take care, everyone.
Wish everyone a good rest of the day.
Thank you, guys.
Likewise. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.